Good morning and welcome to the Leadership and Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky to be joined by Lotta from Insurely. Lotta, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. That's very rude of me to not introduce you as co-founder and COO. I think it's just because we were literally just discussing that, and so it escaped my knowledge. But look, as we do on all the podcasts, I always think it's better to get the guests to introduce their own business. So if you'd be so kind as to introduce Insurely and what you guys do and where the business is going.
Absolutely. But first, thanks for having me on this podcast. Super exciting. So Insurely is an insurtech company. What we're doing is we're building what we say the next big thing in insurance. And what we do actually is we provide an open insurance platform that enables companies such as insurance companies and banks and fintechs and so on to build the next generation insurance experiences. And we build connectivity. So we connect to all the insurance companies out there. And then we provide one single API to these companies, our customers. And they can then build like new insurance experience for their customers, the end consumers. So we build this open insurance platform. We give access to data, so open data. And these companies can now build more frictionless experiences for their customers, which hasn't been there before. So it's a pretty new thing. And these experiences can be such as helping the consumer to switch more easily, or to get an overview of all your policies, for example, in one place, but also like cancel an insurance and everything, and just you still will be in the app where you started the journey. So you never leave the app. So in short, we're doing what open banking has done within the banking industry. So we're similar to companies such as Tink, TrueLayer, Plaid, and so on, and what they've been doing in banking. So we're injecting transparency in the insurance industry. So it's very exciting. Like this is a completely new thing within insurance.
Do you think? I think open banking gets talked about a lot, but I don't think everyone knows what it means. I think people talk about it a lot, but I think if you were to ask the sort of consumer on the street what open banking means, do you think they know? Do you think it's even important that they know?
Maybe not, because the most important thing is that they actually are provided with better services and are empowered as they are with open banking or open data. That's the most important thing, but also that it's done right. Like you need to give your consent to actually share your personal data with a third party player, for example. So those things are important, but it's maybe not necessary that you actually understand the concept of open insurance or banking.
Yeah, I think the reason I'm interested in that question is because I won't lie, before kind of preparing for this podcast, I was thinking, well, what does it even mean? And then, when I sort of really got under the skin of it, I realized that I hadn't really thought about it much, but it's about transparency and data. Why do you think banking's been so much quicker to adopt it, and why is kind of insurance been so slow to adopt this kind of open banking type ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. In general, like insurance is pretty much behind in digitalization overall. And we all know this. And I think one reason for this is that the established insurance companies have had no incentive to actually make insurance more transparent, more accessible, or open and easy to understand. And so they haven't been driving this digitalization forward. And in addition, insurance is not as frequently used, you don't use that as often as transactional data or payments and everything that's within open banking, which means this is not on top of people's mind either. So the consumer behavior hasn't been driving this forward either. So I think that's why we have seen less innovation in this field. However, we are starting to see innovation within insurance. So now we reached a point where it's tipping over and innovation is a must. You know, we're expecting so much more as consumers. We want better services and so on. And also, since it's within banking now, like you can do so much more within banking, it's so much more accessible and so on. You expect that within insurance as well. Yeah, so we see this is changing right now, and also with new players such as, you know, neo insurance companies such as Hedvig in Sweden, for example, Lemonade, which is similar, Leo Care, and so on. So all of this is starting to change, which means the regulatory side is also reacting to this, because always when a consumer behavior reaches to a certain point, like we want other things, then regulators also kind of help them to open up and create innovation and competition and so on. So this is all happening now, and open insurance is kind of the response to all of this.
Yeah.
So we're going to see more of that.
I was going to ask you about regulation. So when did this business start? When did Insurely start?
Yeah, so we started Insurely in 2018. Actually, we started it as a consumer platform. So we wanted to build this service for consumers to see all their insurance policies in one place. And the reason for that was to empower consumers to actually understand how they were insured. Like, do I lack an important insurance policy, or do I pay too much, for example, or like, how do my situation look like? And so we did that, and through this consumer platform, we validated interest in, for the first time, kind of handle and manage your insurance digitally. And there was a huge interest in this. But we also realized that we want to create true change in the industry. So we want to work with the insurance companies and banks and help them create these types of services for their customers.
Yeah.
And then we can actually like unlock this whole potential in what open data can do. So that's how we started, and that was 3 years ago now.
It's a really like simple starting point, but I think one of the things that your business model highlights to me is the lack of touch points insurance companies have with their consumers. So it's very hard to make a product that isn't just purely driven on price if you don't have multiple touch points with that consumer. So I was just thinking as you were sort of speaking, I was going, I've got all these insurances that I barely look at because they're not a sum of money that is troubling to me. Like my life insurance is, I'm relatively young, so it's not that much, and I'm only insured for the amount of my mortgage, and my car insurance isn't a lot because I am a little bit older, so it's not very much. My car's not very, so that they're all quite incremental amounts. So it's quite difficult for anyone to build any loyalty. But I think some of that is just about the way that even that data is held. Like it's not held in one place, so it's not easy to understand. Even for someone that works in insurance, like the language used on the kind of policy documents is arcane or just legal. So it's really difficult. I think it's really difficult for consumers to engage with insurance, full stop. So just even pulling it into one place, so it's kind of there, I think it's a sort of important step. I wanted to ask you about something that a previous guest said, which is a bit unfair, but I think this is an interesting point. So previous guest had suggested that brokers are the true customer of the insurance market, and that's why we don't offer better customer experiences. Do you agree with that at all? I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I thought it was a really interesting point.
Yeah, and especially in the UK, I think that is. And I definitely think that, brokers have had an effect on the lack of improved customer experiences over time. But what we see now is that new insurance players, the ones I kind of mentioned before, the new insurance companies are taking back the control of the customer experience. Because this is the next thing to offer. Like we want convenience, and we want the next level experience and features. This is what we're looking for as customers. So it's not only price anymore that you need to compete on. It's also convenience and just providing the best, different services that are out there. So and open insurance now, since it's gonna become stronger and stronger, this will help the new players create even more frictionless customer experiences. So I think they really will be able to take back control over this. And it's going to change. And then the established insurance players will also kind of be forced to improve their customer experiences as well, to compete with the new players and so on. So, I mean, it's not only price anymore. And we see that in all industries, like you pay more for convenience.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of platform driven. So depending on what platforms you're using, like you want to access like everything that you need to manage, like insurance, your banking accounts, payments, and everything from one single app. I mean, that's the most convenient for you. So this is what the industry is going to work more with going forward, to target the customer where they are at, and like focus on those things instead of only price. Anyways.
Yeah, that who'd have thought, really? I think if you'd gone back a decade and said that almost everyone I know pays Amazon, what is it, £80 a year, or just to be able to get the kind of the instant delivery and like I would have been one of the sort of person, I hate paying for things like that. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to pay for that, but I pay it every year. I've got a podcast recording interrupted yesterday because Amazon are so efficient and they turned up with like half my Christmas shopping. But I think that mindset shift as that has happened in the consumer's mind, and I talk about this a lot, that our experiences as a consumer drive our decisions, even in business as well. Like I know as when I'm choosing business systems now, my level of tolerance for things not being what's the word for it, intuitive. Like if I cannot access and use the system easily, then I just consider it badly designed. That's a really unfair bar, but it's out of these kind of consumer technologies. It's out of working with Amazons and the Monzo and even things like Uber. Like the idea of me having to phone a taxi company now is
yeah, exactly. We have completely different expectations today, and it's affecting everything around us. It's frustrating because I mean, not all industries can live up to our expectations anymore.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's very true. Obviously, one of the things that comes up when we talk about open a lot is transparency. So I wanted to sort of get your view on how important transparency is to the insurance industry, not just in kind of in principle, but would you say that we haven't been transparent previously, and there's been a kind of tendency in the insurance industry to stay away from being fully transparent?
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, it hasn't been as transparent as it could have been. And it's just a combination of reasons for why that is, I would say. But I mean, and transparency for me means I'm the possibility to access and share insurance data. So consumers at the end can make more informed decisions, because I mean, today you need to see all the information and data to actually make your own decision. And when you can't see that information, which is the fact today in the insurance industry, like as you said, like you have different policies and you have them probably with different companies and so on. It's just hard to understand and get a grip of how your complete situation look like. And that contributes to the industry to be opaque in a way, because you can't you as a consumer can't make the best possible decision for you. It's so, and the reason for that is because they are not digital enough, and it's so simple in a way. But of course these companies are struggling with their like issues as IT legacy, for example, or yeah, other things. They're slow moving, and we know this, and that's the reason for why new players also rise, because they suddenly there is a chance for them to compete with these large established insurance companies. But I mean, I bet that they want to be more transparent. They probably don't know really how. That's like one side of this. On the other side, they actually benefit from the industry not to be the transparent as it could be, because then they can raise prices yearly. You would never cancel it anyway. You can't really react on that and so on, because it's so hard for consumers. And so on. So I think we need transparency in the industry. We consumers need to be able to make their own decisions, to make sure you have the right insurance for your need. That's much more important than just to like have the lowest prices or something like that. So, and also transparency, meaning open data, also increases innovation. So I mean, later on, we're going to see even better products and more probably tailored to our different needs. And it could also like enable competition, foster competition. So which also would improve the offerings in the market and our overall situation. And that's, I think it's very important that this development happen.
Yeah, because we had a company called TrustLayer on that are in the US, and they provide digital proof of insurance for contractors and verification of insurance that's like live and to the minute. And the conversation we had was that there's a whole industry waiting, or there's not industry, but there's companies waiting to be born out of a platform like Insurely because of the different things it allows people to do. That open and transparency allows you to build businesses in a different way. But I do have empathy for some of the incumbents, because if you look at an incumbent's, just a tech team, they have a different responsibility. Like their tech team is largely responsible for the upkeep of this like monolithic, huge kind of sprawling infrastructure. And there's no sort of space in that team for necessarily innovative technology. I don't want any angry tech teams telling me that they're innovative. Like, I'm sure there's innovation happening as well, but it's just the lion's share of what they're having to do is kind of work on old tech stacks and keep them going. Why there's room for Hedvig and Lemonade, etc. I wanted to just go back to regulation, because one of the biggest challenges with open insurance, open banking, is regulation. I like to have this view that it comes from writing, right? So I used to, I still do write, and I always think like some of the most exciting things to write are like the locked room scenario. So the restrictions you put on things drive creativity. So I always think regulation drives people to be creative. So I wondered kind of what impact regulations directly had on sort of product development from your perspective.
I mean, for us, so far, regulation has not impacted our product development. I mean, so we base our services today on power of attorney and GDPR, so existing regulation. So, but there will be a new regulation within open insurance. So we kind of expect the same development as within open banking and PSD2. And that will hopefully impact us in a very good way, because it's going to force the insurance companies to open up and make it easier for us to access this data as a third-party provider, and in a more structured way. So, but regulation is these regulations are reactive always, and to the market for the same reasons as why we started Insurely, like lack of innovation, lack of competition, which means lack of good enough services for us consumers. So the upcoming open insurance regulation will actually be to our benefit. But we're kind of doing the same thing already. So we offered the same services today already that will be offered from more players, I assume, going forward under a regulation. So for us, it's just a good thing with regulation, because it also, I mean, our biggest risk is that there will be unserious players coming in to do what we're doing and not taking this seriously, not like following GDPR when handling data and so on. So that could like become a reputational risk. So a regulation would be good for us. I think we're already innovating very much. So I don't know if it's gonna like make us more innovative when a regulation comes, but maybe that's in our core. Like we're gonna continue to innovate always. We will never stagnate. We would never be like comfortable with where we are. So because the market is just starting to change. So who knows how this is gonna look like in the future, and we want to like follow that path or lead the path.
I'm interested in what you said there. You said innovations at our core. How do you create a kind of culture of innovation? Do you think? How do you create that culture of innovation within a business?
For us, in the beginning, it has been driven by the fear of becoming an insurance company, or like how they are. And like, because we are operating in the insurance industry, and we also come from insurance, some of us. I mean, myself, I have a background as a management consultant within insurance. So that's another perspective, but we also have people from the insurance industry, obviously. And we've been, when we recruited these people, we also said like, it's very important that we continue to think outside of the box. Like we would never become this insurance company or this, I don't know, even established player or whatever. We're gonna continue to innovate, and we challenge ourselves, and we have that as part of our values as well. Like continue to challenge ourselves, and we lead innovation. We don't follow. Which means we're also going to have to take that step and maybe be a little bit uncomfortable when we say something or when we I don't know, try a product out, or like we're going to have to trust ourselves. And that's something that we work on internally through our values. And when we recruit, like what we talk about in our teams and so on. And it's actually, so far it's working, and it's just highlighting that thing as an important part of our company culture helps.
Yeah, I mean, I was selfishly hoping you'd say that. I mean, I was thinking, because for me, it's hiring the right people, but not just that. You have to create a kind of safe environment for conversation, and people need to be not afraid to fail, and in front of their colleagues. You know, it instantly made me think of, I remember I was hired once to go somewhere, and they were like, we like the fact you've worked for yourself, and we want you to challenge us, and then that was very much not the case. It was very clear that it was this kind of top-down hierarchical structure, and so many times I see that people want to talk about innovation, but if you don't create, and I hate to use this term, but essentially a safe space for innovation, where you know, not everything when you're innovating works, and not everything you innovate is good. You know, there's
definitely,
but that's that, you have to be allowed to fail, and that needs to be part of the role. Otherwise, I don't think you're not failing, you're not doing it right, as far as I'm concerned.
No, it's a good thing that you dare to try. And also I know some companies are taking it as far as like celebrating the failures more than successes, for example, just to like foster that culture. We haven't gone that far yet, but I like the idea, because it is hard to make people feel safe in failing or in trying new ideas without knowing how it's going to turn out. So, but we at least have that ambition and really want to build that type of culture, because I think it's, in the end, it's going to be all about being fast like fast moving. Like we also probably gonna have to challenge ourselves and maybe change routes once in a while going forward. So yeah, super important.
Yeah, and it's hard, particularly when you've got a bunch of high achieving people in a room, like society wise, culturally, you know, failure isn't celebrated. And where I think innovation is particularly interesting is that innovation is that really magic space at work where it's kind of between work and play, because it's creativity within business, and creativity, there's no kind of, I'm sure some brilliant consultant will tell me that there's a perfect formula for creating innovation, but realistically it's a creative part of the process. So there has to be room for that bit of magic. So yeah, I like that idea of celebrating failures. I'm not sure how I'd adopt it in my business, because that just means I'm not making money. I wanted to talk to you about partnerships, because I obviously saw in the news that you guys are partnering with Hedvig, and I thought that was interesting and quite telling, because obviously they're a very modern insurance business, very digital first. Makes sense that you would do that partnership. Has there been a lack of engagement from like the established insurers? Have you struggled to kind of penetrate those?
Yeah, it's I mean, naturally it's been easier for us to partner up with neo insurers like Hedvig, and also mid-sized companies early on, because these companies are struggling to take market share from the established players. They're more innovative, of course, to their core, and they also strive constantly to improve their features and the offerings. They're also moving faster and have less tech legacy and so on. So I mean, with Hedvig, for example, it took them like 3 weeks to implement our services, which is enormously fast. But I mean, we actually see now that these established insurance companies are reacting. And I think it's in one way because open insurance as a concept and term is becoming more mature. They know that this will happen, so they need to make investment in this area anyways. Like they can't just sit and wait any longer. It's going too far. And then they are also actually seeing things moving, like these new insurance companies are actually creating a change now in the industry. They are taking customers from the incumbents, and they can probably already feel that it doesn't take too much to large volumes to see that change. Sorry. And so now we actually see a bigger demand from established players as well, and we're actually going live with some exciting partnerships here after New Year's. So that's going to be very exciting. And after that, it's going to be even easier to also continue to partner up with even bigger insurance companies and so on, because it's also a trust game. Like they need to trust us in being this serious open insurance platform then. And the easiest way to do that is that another strong brand just partner up with us. So like one partnership at a time, it's going to be easier to target the enterprise segment, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting because we see them reacting now. It took a few years, but they are going to jump on this train as well. And that's what we see within open banking. I mean, now it's a hygiene factor to have the open banking services in your bank app. So I think we're going to see the same development within insurance. And the bigger insurance companies have even more to gain because they already sit on like they sit on so much data, and to just add this other layer and category of data would make them very powerful in a way. So they really want this data as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting about the legacy insurers that there's such a prominent position that every incremental win is the magnitude of that is enormous. So it's but yeah, that sort of time served I always talk about in insurance. There's always been a thing that, you know, the trust is built over time, and particularly with the kind of with the incumbent class. Because geographically, where are you focused? Are you just focused on the kind of the local market? Where do you target business?
I mean, we started off in Sweden, and we covered the whole Swedish market when it comes to data coverage. But we are also in Denmark and Norway, so the Nordics, and we're about to enter the UK as well. So taking market by market.
Yeah, because I was wondering if it's a specific challenge as well with partnering, because the Swedish insurance market, not that I know, I've done some work there, not very much, but it's, you know, you've got a small number of very big players that dominate the market, if I'm correct. So
yeah,
sort of yeah, you've only got about 3 to go at to start with, the big players. So I imagine that's quite challenging.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I mean, in all markets that we enter, the go-to-market strategy would be to work with neo insurance and mid-size companies first.
Yeah.
And build up a business and and trust, and then we're going to target the bigger players, and that's going to come naturally. So that's why we kind of expand to new markets while also becoming stronger in the Nordics at the same time. So that's like a natural expansion strategy.
Yeah, awesome. I want to ask you what makes a good insurer partner. Now you've done a few. What makes it work for you?
Except what we just talked about, like neo insurance companies are easier in the beginning and so on. The companies that have strong ambassadors for new technologies, and as we talked about, like they are more innovative and want to try new things. Those companies are like the best partners for us, because then we can work closely together with these ambassadors and like create the best type of customer experience for them, like, and really help them succeed with these features. And so they kind of need to have realized that they want and need to adapt to their customers' new and changing needs. I mean, that's the first criteria, kind of. And then what we want to do is to partner up with insurance companies that offer great products and have an attitude to actually do good for consumers. And I mean, most companies are doing that. Obviously, they are creating good insurance products for us, all the people out there. But I mean, there are also companies maybe doing less good, like, and we prefer not to work with those. Like, we want to really create a good change in this industry. So that's another thing. But otherwise than that, the strong ambassador thing is the most important. I mean, all of the bigger companies have tech legacy, so that's inevitable. Like, we can't do anything about that. So our strategy is instead to build the best type of products, and like they're easy to implement. Like, we provide an API, but we also package that into different modules that can be implemented easier. And we really help them with design guides and so on how to implement this in the best possible way. Yeah. So we are very developer friendly, and we kind of work closely together with these companies to help them succeed and build success cases, so it's easy for next one and so on. So that's also the strategy.
I was going to ask you about like moduling and things. Is there a specific, you know, because the open nature is essentially enabling the insurer or neo insurer to create their own customer experiences or products. Is there any particular theme of the specific things that they're getting there? What are the experiences that they're creating? Is there a common theme, or are they all kind of approaching things in slightly different ways?
No, it's very like, we have a few use cases that most companies are using, and like one is what we call the switching service, which is what Hedvig is using, for example. So the whole idea is to make it easier for consumers to switch their insurance policy to another. meaning like we create a frictionless customer journey. So in this use case, they can actually like collect their existing insurance policy, because normally you have a home insurance already, but you want to like explore new offerings. So you can like look at that and then compare that with this new offering in the Hedvig app in this case. So you never leave the app, and they can also autofill a lot of information for you. So we reduce all the typical churn points, for example. And they know the expiration date of your existing insurance. So they can also say, okay, your new one should start at this date. They also get all the relevant information to cancel your existing insurance for you. So just the whole experience becomes so much better. So that increases conversion a lot for these players. Because otherwise you would have to leave the app to find out like when should it start, or like what did I have now again? Like I don't remember what I'm switching from, or this insecurity leaves you hanging kinda. You never like check out in the end. So that's one typical feature. Another one is the insurance manager, as we call it. So it's the feature where you can see all your policies in one place. And that's very interesting for insurance companies with several personal lines. So since it's so expensive to acquire new customers today, once they acquired a customer, they want to sell more policies to you. So if they let you see, it's a transparency thing, because they also like seems to be very transparent in letting you collect your other insurance policies to their interface. So, but then they can target you with better offerings, lower prices, perhaps, or better products. But also if we can see that you lack a life insurance, for example, blah, 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 and then they can target you with that. So it's a very good thing to sell more insurance policies.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've discussed previously, like the openness thing of that. Like my life insurance, there's nothing to stop my life insurance provider also just letting me keep my motor insurance data on there, and then potentially like either doing a partnership where they could sell me. I just think that kind of culture of oh, your life insurance is here and then your car insurance is here is so antiquated, and as a consumer is why I don't engage with it at all. Sorry.
No, sorry. Yeah, but the biggest benefit here is that companies can be more relevant when targeting you, because it's not like your interest in insurance is gonna increase due to open data and so on. But they can be more relevant, so they can target you when you actually can change your policy, or when something is changing in your life, for example, and be truly relevant, because then it's actually interesting to you.
Well, one of the big things that I talk about is that even for someone that works in the industry, when I'm being asked to make decisions on how much coverage I want, like, how much like home contents cover do you want? Well, I don't know what the average claim is. Like, what's the average claim? Like, if you could tell me what's the average claim for a person of my age and my income, then maybe that gives me a gauge. But otherwise, we're just filling in these numbers of which we don't really understand. And even small business, small business insurance, like I have to get professional indemnity cover for my business. I don't know how much professional indemnity cover I'm supposed to get. What's the average claim against someone in my profession? I don't know. So it's all about that kind of information that insurers have and they don't share. But it's not because they don't want to. It's the technology hasn't been there to do so. So the frictionless sharing of data is hugely important.
Exactly, and you're onto something there, because do later on is to show benchmarks, for example. So you can, when you are looking at a new offering, then you can like, okay, but this is what other people are choosing. This amount is the most common one for people like you. So we can start doing that profiling, which is going to be very helpful, because you don't know. And like it's so hard to choose exactly right, because you never know what's going to happen. So
and we're people that understand the market, let alone something I don't know. It brings me back to this. We've kind of touched on this. So And I think you said like people are prepared to pay for a better experience though. I suppose the cynic in me, particularly when you're looking at entering the UK market, UK's famously been very price, sensitive, and it's price driven. Can you have that richer customer experience and low price? Is that possible, or are we going to see prices go up but people tolerate it because the experience is going to be better?
No, I actually think companies can offer both. Like these neo insurance players are also offering lower prices, perhaps as an initial pricing strategy. But I mean, they can start learning based on the data that they actually collect and aggregate. They can start learning and optimize prices sooner than they would have had if they need to collect like historical data over years and years and years. So they can faster start and compete on prices as well, while offering more convenience and better services. So these players, as we also see them grow pretty fast, I mean, they have a long way to go to become as big as these established players, but they're gonna be threatening them eventually when they offer both better price and products and convenience, because they know how to leverage data and act on that.
Yeah, and that's always been the big threat, I think. Well, Lotta, I always like to look forward. Is 2022 going to see the UK launch, or what are we going to see in 2022 from you guys?
I definitely hope so. So that's the initial plan. So we're starting to build our services in the UK right now, and we hope to release and launch our first partnerships here in 2022. We will see exactly when, but hopefully before summer. So, awesome. Stay tuned for that.
Well, look, that's super exciting, and when you're smashing it out of the park in the UK, we'd love to have you back. But look, thank you so much for being a guest. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.